Welcome to the White Sox Recap Podcast. I am Ryan McGuffey. Well, the White Sox made 4 acquisitions at the trade deadline, which is now come and gone. And it's time to assess what we think of those acquisitions. They might not be the biggest names, but were they the right names for this White Sox team that's been the best story in all of baseball? Luis Castillo, the headliner of the trade deadline acquisitions for the White Sox. And I'm not sure that me or my partner in this case, Jonathan Hood, were expecting that guy to be the marquee name acquired at the deadline. But it's okay. Or is it? The AL Central's still up for grabs, and the White Sox still have a decent lead as we record this. But what will the White Sox do going forward if Luis Castillo isn't that guy? Do they have enough in their rotation? We saw Davis Martin in the start in Boston. Are we worried? We're going to get to all of that. We're going to give you our grades for the White Sox trade deadline. We're going to discuss why, or at least I'll give you my opinion as to why I don't think anybody should be panicking after the Boston series. And then we're going to pay tribute to our guy, number 13, and soon to be retired forever in White Sox lore, as it should be. Ozzie Guillen getting his number retired on Saturday, and 2 of his biggest fans are right here to talk about it. Jonathan Hood joins me on this edition of the White Sox Recap Podcast, and it starts right now. All right, Jonathan Hood, my guy, joins me here on the podcast. You and I have been texting pretty much since Saturday when the White Sox made, and at that point, I guess, kind of jumped the market and made the trade for Luis Castillo, which at the time, I really liked this move. Now, in the days after, it doesn't change how I feel about the move. It was more about what came after. You and I are both going to give out our grades. In fairness, I did put out a video here on YouTube giving my grade of the White Sox deadline at a C+. I'm going to table that for now. But when we look at what the White Sox acquired here, and here are the names on your screen if you're watching this: Luis Castillo, Oscar Brazaban, Bretton Doyle, and Joey Bart. What's your first impression after the deadline reached 0 Monday night? You and I were on the air together doing the MLB Recap Trade Deadline Special.
I was hoping that there would be a second starter for Chris Getz and the White Sox. Guff, that was my hope, right? Because as we take a look at this rotation, my worry is Davis Martin. I think we know who the number 1 starter is at this time. It's Burke, but I'm concerned about Davis Martin because whether he's tipping his pitches or not, whether the film is out on Davis Martin, how to get to him, that doesn't concern me. What concerns me is that he's not as effective as he was in the first half of the season. And so now Castillo looms large to be able to help this team, because now it's a battle on who's the second starter when you get to a playoff scenario. If you get to a playoff scenario, is it Martin or is it Castillo? And that's the question. So let's see how Castillo is able to just get comfortable with the White Sox here for the next few amount of games here leading into the playoffs.
Yeah, we're taping this in the hours leading up to Castillo making his debut with the White Sox. And I'm not going to panic or overreact to what happens against Boston. I'm not going to look at his first 2 starts and make my decision long-term whether or not this was a good trade. I know why the trade was made. We heard from Chris Getz here on the podcast. I understand why the trade was made. You have a rotation coming into the deadline that you and I have discussed at length that, hey, it's been great story. Do they have enough? Do they have enough? Do they have enough? We know what's down in the minor leagues. It's just a bunch of more inexperienced stuff, really good stuff, and we're going to see the McDougalls and the Hagen Smiths here soon in the bullpen. But I'm with you. I really would have felt better. And I want this to come back. I'd like to play this in 2 months when the White Sox are getting ready for game 1. Mm-hmm. And Luis Castillo has been clearly like one of the better trade acquisitions at the deadline, just so we can be like, man, that's awesome. Like, what a great job by the White Sox front office going out and finding that guy. But I would have rather, to be honest with you, had what the Cubs did. Kevin Gausman and Clay Holmes. Like, I like those 2 moves. You get the veteran guy who was just there in the playoffs last year. I know Luis Castillo shoved in some of the playoffs, but Gausman and Clay Holmes, the upside of 2 guys is just better than 1. And I know Clay Holmes is coming off of an injury, but this is about insurance for the insurance to me. So whether it was Robbie Ray or Casey Mize or some type of rental, I just thought 2 was going to be better than 1. And I'm not even sure the name really matters here, Hoodie.
No, I look at it like this. I wonder what Chris Getz thinks if the Sox get to the playoffs. What does he think of Anthony Kay? Because is he thinking that Anthony Kay is better than we've seen? All I know is that experience matters. Experience is better than just having young kids in there. And by the way, I'm not shitting on the young kids. What I'm saying is that in a playoff scenario, in a tight series, experience does matter. It's not about chemistry. No one's going to disrupt the chemistry. One guy or two new guys in the locker room doesn't do that. What I'm saying is that Burke, Martin, and Castillo are fine, but I expected more than fine at the deadline. It's fine. The deadline for me feels like a B- to a C+, but here's the reason why, Guff. The deadline for Getz felt like, oh, well, if we fall short in the playoffs this year, we got next year. Do you have next year? Are you sure about that? What we have on the bottom of the screen feels like this is fine because we're going to grow next year. You're going to get a season next year? See, to me, tomorrow's not promised. And so I didn't think that we'd get every top shelf available, arm or bat. But I thought that maybe we would go a step further by saying, let's have 2 starters. That way, Noah Schultz is in the minor leagues where he belongs for more seasoning, that Fetty can be the long man. Anthony Kay can learn as we go along here. But 2 arms would have been nice.
So Anthony Kay I'm just basically since July, okay? So like that start before the trade deadline to current, he's thrown 30 innings and 6 starts. So he's five innings a start. He does have an ERA of 3 even. Good, but when you talk about length, now in the postseason, we know like 5 innings, you get 5 innings out of your starter in the postseason, that's a major win.
Yeah.
Maybe Anthony Kay's interesting because it feels like they have about 3.5 starters right now. We need to know more. And I'm saying a half because I think I'm counting Luis Castillo as a full.
Sure.
And Davis Martin has kind of, until he figures stuff out, because in that same time frame, Davis Martin's 1-5 with a 7.76. So it's very clear what he did in the first 2 months has not equaled the last 2 months. The good thing about Davis Martin is he is one of the elder statesmen on the staff.
Yeah. They
cut over to him multiple times in the early innings of the broadcast on Wednesday night. And I know you saw it smiling, laughing. And I'm like, I want to see that. That's the guy I want to see. And it represents and embodies this entire White Sox team to me. I want to talk about the Red Sox series in a second, but let's keep dissecting this pitching thing for a minute because I'm just with you. I'm trying to think about the White Sox in the LDS. I know there's a strong scenario here that has them in that first wild card series, being the 3rd division winner. However, in an LDS, I just feel so much better. Like Sean Burke looks like a dude. Even the stuff in Boston, he wasn't on his A game. He threw a lot of pitches. But when he wanted to just shove and go at a guy on 3-2 and get him up and in, man, his ability to paint the fastball has been fantastic. And I don't think I think the bigger the moment and the bigger the stadium, like the better he's been. Mm-hmm. But I feel so much better about that in game 2 than I do game 1.
Well, I totally agree with that. Burke's confidence tells me, boy, if he would have started this way, he would have been the all-star. And not the question mark to Davis Martin. Davis Martin pitched himself out of the all-star game, unfortunately.
He did.
And so it's weird for me, Guff, because I feel more confident about the relief corps than I do the starters at this time. And so, if one of our starters goes short, I feel good that Brazaban's there. I like Hudson. I'm glad that Taylor has been crowned the closer. I think that's what's happened now because they couldn't acquire a closer. So I think he's our 9th inning guy. But I feel more confident over the last, I would say, month and a half, especially with the Sir Anthony Dominguez out. I feel a lot more confident about the relief corps, but I need to be more confident about the starters. Yeah, he sucked.
See that debut?
What a shock!
2/3, 2 homers, 4 runs. Thanks, Seattle.
Yeah, not a surprise to this veteran observer of the Dominguez scene. But here's the thing. I need length out of the starters, though. I need that confidence between now and the end of the regular season, so I know that in a short series that I can give the ball to Burke, Martin, and Castillo, because that's the 3 right now. In a short 100%. Series, they're the 3.
Yep.
But I'm a lot more confident today talking to you about the relief corps. I think that we got arms. We got guys that can get outs, left side and right side, power arms. I like it. And Grant Taylor's just got to be able to accept it. You're the guy now in the ninth. You got to get it done.
And keep in mind what they got. I mean, they have been stretching. They have been Hagen Smith and Tanner McDougal have been pitching out of the bullpen now for weeks. So I like that the White Sox are backing up what's at the major league level by already getting ahead of it in the minor leagues. And that's the thing, because we've just spent 10 minutes kind of, I don't want to say we're poo-pooing the deadline.
No. But
in some ways we are. But let's also say, because this would have been a completely different podcast if we put on the graphic you see, it said White Sox Recap Podcast, Sox Stand Pat at deadline. Because that would have been not a shock if it happened. And the fact that Chris said, we're looking for starters, we're looking for relievers, we're looking for extra outfield bats, and we're looking for a catcher, and he went out and he checked all 4 of those boxes. Very few White Sox GMs have done that. Very few White Sox GMs have been able to say, here's the plan. And it might not be the names that I could tell you that there was some stuff out there. They were trying, they were listening, they were thinking. And some of these organizations, I have no idea what the hell the Cincinnati Reds were doing. Joey Bart could have been Tyler Stevenson. What the hell were the Reds doing? Now, Gordon Wittenmyer says the Reds didn't get any calls for Brady Singer or Tyler Stevenson. I'm sorry, I'm calling BS on it. I just am. The guy's crying on a broadcast on Sunday, and all of a sudden he's back in the clubhouse on Monday night. I'm calling BS on that. So you have organizations that you're trying to, and I asked Chris, did he ever feel frustrated during the deadline? And he said, not frustrated. You just need to know when to pivot and when to hold on to the price you believe. I heard they could have had Soriano in LA they were trying to get him for Billy Carlson straight up. Angels poo-pooed it. That's fine. So the Sox, that tells me that they were not so locked in on holding on to their top 10. If they were trying to be creative, it was very clear. You talked about 2027. It was very clear club control mattered to Getz in the front office. So you know what? They went out there and got guys with club control. So I'm not going to crap on that. I'm not going to crap on Tristan Peters has not been the same all-star since he got back from the All-Star game. So go get Brenton Doyle, who's won 2 Gold Gloves, and make sure your defense is as good as can be for that young pitching staff.
What you're saying is sound, but I just don't like the idea that Cleveland had a better deadline.
I don't either. And the Twins, you can argue what they went out and got 3 relievers. Like, I'm with you. Very rarely has the Cleveland Guardians might have been the biggest surprise at the deadline for anybody because they never add. And they added a starter, they added a good first baseman, and they added a power-hitting right fielder. Now, since then, they got swept by the New York Mets. We appreciate you, New York.
Yes.
Thank you very much. The trade deadline, sometimes it's baseball, man. It never fails, right? I mean, the Dodgers get Tarek Skubal, they get swept by the Cubs. It's funny. It's just funny how it happens. That's why, back to the Castillo thing, I'm not going to overreact to if he goes 7 scoreless innings or makes it through 3 and gives up 7 runs. I'm just not going to do it. Not against Boston, who's the hot. Like they're not even the hottest team in baseball. They're a record-setting hot team, 25-3.
Yeah, so I give them full credit. It's just a buzzsaw that the Sox are going through right now against the Red Sox. It is a extremely hot team to the point where Martin and Burke were not able to, get the job done. They were not. And of course, what's worse is the offense. So here we go. So here's the thing. When you have a young ball club like the White Sox, and they've been able to find ways magically to be able to win these ball games, pulling out of places that they didn't know they had places, right? These wins, especially at home. So cool at the rate that they're able to do that. But Guff, as you well know, there's growing pains with young players as well. They don't know what they don't know. They're just playing baseball. They're playing free and loose. And that's what I love about my team. Free and loose. It's great, right? I love it. They have the temperament of Getz and the manager at the same time somehow, right? Yep. But my concern is that if the starting pitching does not lead the way, that opens up the floodgates for the offense. And that's a problem, because if the offense is going to be stagnant and the starting pitching doesn't have length, we're kind of screwed. And so, I love that my team that can score in bunches, but also like for them to be able to keep the line moving a lot of games as well. One thing, the hallmark of the Sox that we've seen a lot of is, hey, we got a crooked number on the board. Like somebody hits a base hit and then someone else gets a double. Someone gets a base hit, then someone hits a home run. Blue blast. Oh my God, we scored 8 in that inning. We scored, which is awesome, right? Because it's better than the alternative. But I just know, like our listeners and viewers know, man, when it comes to those tight series in the playoffs, you can get your water turned off and something must come through. If it's not the offense, it's got to be the starting pitching. That's why it was it was vital for me for the Sox to identify several starters just in case the offense is not coming through. But who knows?
I know. I think it's a really good point because it's such when your team is in a pennant race, we all know it's so much fun, especially when we didn't see it coming, and especially what the hell we've been through the last 3+ years of 340 effing losses, right? Yeah. But now, like, I'm not sad. Like, I've already seen people start to settle and say, well, we're ahead of schedule and, no matter what happens, like, this has been a great year. Don't do that. You have a 3-game lead in the American League Central on August 6th. There's my expectation now is you have to get into the wild card. Win the damn division. Yep. Win the division. And Chris, by acquiring 4 players, I think he's thinking the same thing. He sees an American League Central with opportunity. And I heard him on the broadcast last night. Well, if the White Sox were in the East, they'd be in 4th. And you know what else they'd be in? The wild card. That's just how it works. Like, right. When no one said that. John didn't say that. Danny Plesac didn't say that. And I wanted them to be like, they would have been 4th, but they would still be one of the better teams in baseball because they are a really good baseball team. And offensively, they're a slugging team. And when they're not slugging the baseball, they look a lot like they did Wednesday night. That's just a fact. And Colson Montgomery's going through it right now, right? Yeah. So when there's so much spotlight on a young team, when those things that we've grown accustomed to seeing aren't happening. And then I'm going to hit the pause button on my thought and just go back a few days ago when everyone the recency bias of baseball, we forget that they clubbed the Tampa Bay Rays 15-3 in 3 games. That's right. The best home team in baseball and have been the best team in the American League all year long. So what I'm telling you people is, yes, they're in a gauntlet right now, but they've survived. How they responded to that Yankees series after getting smoked those first 2 games, even almost 2.5 games, and came back and evened that series up, kicked ass in Tampa Bay. And so they've hit a speed bump in Boston. Well, guess what? Every team in baseball can raise their hand to that. Yep. Because the last 35 days, every team that had to play the Boston Red Sox, ask the Dodgers. They just got swept at home by the Red Sox. It happens. You got the Guardians on deck. And the schedule does soften up again. Then you get the Reds. You got to take care of business, and the White Sox have shown that. I'm just with you. The one thing about what Chris said, he even said this, that these years are sacred, and then we're going to put our final grade and look ahead here. These years are sacred, and you can't guarantee it. And then he said we have the fewest number of innings from starters in baseball, and then Luis Castillo. So I like the Castillo move on an island and on its own. I'm just with you. Like, my insurance policy just feels a little lacking right now. Yeah. And by the way, I'm looking right in the camera to tell you I have been wrong most of the year. And I'm hoping, I'm not necessarily looking to be wrong here. I'm just looking for Chris Getz to kind of be like this in 2 months.
Yeah. Leaning back,
feeling like, guys, I went out and got the players that were good for our team.
Yeah, no, all good. It's fine. I just look forward to this young team being able to get to the next challenge, and that's taking on the Cleveland Guardians. Because when they say there's no big games in August, that's not true. That's not true. This one here is head-to-head against the team that's trying to track you down. And we've already said on a White Sox podcast that we felt like Cleveland had a better deadline from a personnel standpoint. So now it's up to you on a big weekend to be able to get it done, to be able to kind of reset things. But here's the thing. The deadline is not going to It's not going to make me sour against my favorite team. It's not.
No way.
Because there's been many deadlines you mentioned in which nothing happens. Well, we must misjudge the market. We couldn't do this, or we couldn't get this big fish. Okay, well, they did something. They addressed something that I think that they would address, and that's getting a catcher. I told you, Guff, I'm like, Drew Romo, Carroll, just call a good game. You've got 8 guys that can hit. And then they get Joey Bart, a good defensive catcher. They didn't have to, but they put him as a frontline guy until Teal comes back. So I like that. I like the aggressiveness of looking at your bullpen and said, we don't have Dominguez anymore, but here's a hard thrower here in Brazoban, which you could always get out of your medicine cabinet, by the way. If you get indigestion, go to Brazoban. It's always very good, by the way. Just one tablespoon.
Never let you down.
Yeah, just 1 tablespoon. It's okay. Then it goes down smooth. You go to bed and you feel much better in the morning. But I like that. You got a hard thrower right there to replace what we had there. Some GMs wouldn't do that. They just say, well, we're good with what we have here. And by the way, it is good. I have confidence when Brian Hudson and Grant Taylor and Brazoban, now the part of the mix, and Newcomb and
I'm with you.
Jordan Hicks is in there as well.
Yeah.
I like the lefty and righties coming out of the bullpen.
Me too. And give Bove and Bannister and those guys huge credit, because Jordan Hicks is a great, they made Luis Castillo just being part of a 5-man rotation again that might be the cure. If you go back and look at his baseball card, there's a lot of 3.5, a lot of 3. His career ERA is 3.65. So he's got a 5.06 this year. Okay, he's been piggybacked. He came out of the pen in late innings. He came into the games in middle innings. Then they kept him back in the rotation. Then they moved him back to piggyback. That guy's not meant to be like that. That's not that creature of habit. Eric Fetty's one thing. Luis Castillo, 3-time All-Star, that's a different thing.
Yeah, I hope Castillo understands, hey, man, you're in a playoff race now. We are relying on you as a veteran to lead them. And I'm sure he's looking around like, me? Yeah, you got the playoff experience. This is the arm that we need.
I think, to your point, I that's the part I like about Castillo a lot. I don't know today. I could be very emphatic on this point that I'm not starting him game 1 in the playoff series. That could change in 2 months. That could absolutely change in 2 months. All right, let's put our final. I think we kind of did it, but let's just make sure. Let's post our final grade here on the White Sox trade deadline. I'm going C+. That grade is subject to. I don't think it can go lower. I'm not. If Castillo's here as a 5 ERA guy the rest of the year, so be it. I'm not going to change my grade to a lower grade. I think it was average plus. Okay, there was not that sexy name, but the needs that Chris needed to go out and address were addressed. And I have hope and faith, which I hate relying on, that Luis Castillo is going to be a tick better here.
Just because we're 2 men of faith, let's go with the faith, because hope's not a fucking plan.
Yeah, I've got PTSD from the last regime, so
there's no hope. We just have faith. That's all we have. Because hope is not a plan, McGuffey. Don't you understand?
No, that's true.
It's like B minus. It's B minus or C plus. We're in the same because there was activity. Now, listen, you never confuse activity with accomplishment. I think that's very clear. However, I think you're filling the bill by being able to get the catcher that you needed because you're in a flux in that scenario. You were able to upgrade, I hope, with Brazoban in the relief corps. You got yourself a starter. And the outfielder, right?
Brenton Doyle, yep.
Yeah, Brenton Doyle. So who can go get him, right?
Yeah.
So I think that we're on the same page from a grade standpoint.
Cleveland was 5 games over at the All-Star break, and they are now 2 games under 500 since. So this is a great opportunity for the White Sox to go out. They've been the second best, other than the Rays, they've been the best home team in baseball. So that place is going to be rocking. It sounds like they're going to have 30,000 plus every night. We know Saturday's sold out. We're going to get to Saturday here in a minute. But the White Sox have done a really good job of responding. They're the only team in baseball now that hasn't lost 4 games in a row. And when you see social media, and we all do it, we all fall in the same dark trap of 48 hours of bad baseball. It's like, oh, what are we doing here, folks? That's why I'm saying, this team, unlike any team I can remember in recent memory, wakes up different. They wake up and they blacked out. They forgot what happened last night. It's like... So, and that's why I'm just kind of whether they get swept in Boston or not, this team's ability to just turn the page, and that's top down. That's a top down thing with a young team. That's super impressive, and I still believe it, which is why they're going to win the AL Central.
We had a caller from Orlando, Florida on the Cap and J Hood morning show, right? Weekday morning, 6 to 9 on ESPN Chicago. Gotta do it. Guy from Orlando called in. He goes, I don't know, guys. Team's not playing well. I don't know. And I just stopped him, right? I told Cap, step aside. I got this.
Yeah.
I said, sir, what you're feeling right now is care. You didn't have that for a couple of years when you're losing 100 games a year and you're getting your ass kicked. The reason why that you feel nervous about the White Sox is because the adrenaline's flowing again. It's like hulking up, right? It's like Hulk Hogan back in the day. You got the adrenaline going because now you care. That feeling is you care. That's the feeling. It's like you can. And so if you're up or down about the White Sox, just remember, take solace in the fact that this team is not going to lose 100 games this year, that this team's actually going to go to the playoffs. And so for the Sox fan out there that's looking at it like, the Sox, same old Sox. It's not the same old Sox. It's not. The young guys are showing you that it's not the same old Sox. So if you are down about the team, about a loss, that's good. Because now the care is back. Before it would just be a game at the bar, right? You go to McNally's and you go and you see a game at the bar, just like, Sox are playing and getting their ass kicked. All right, another rack them up, another pool game, right? It would just be background noise for you at the bar. Now you are invested. The investment is there for us as Sox fans because our team is good. The team's good, Guff. And so that's why when people say, I'm not sure, we got to go, hold on to our prospects. Don't hold on. Hey, man, at least there's chatter. The blood's flowing. The circulation is there now because we're good and we're going to the playoffs.
Yeah. And I think that's really well said because you do forget when it's been a while. Speaking of the team blacking out, fans do too. Fans black out too. Because when you've just seen the same narrative and story time and time again, and you've had your head beaten into the wall, why wouldn't you be worried after a 4-0 loss or back-to-back ugly losses? The every year there's a team that beats your ass, and the Dodgers would say the same thing. I'm not just saying the White Sox. Every year there's like you go back after the season and you say, okay, we were 9-7 against the Guardians and we were 4-2 against the Yankees. Oh God, we were 0-6 against the Red Sox. So be it. They happen to play the Red Sox in the middle of this historic stretch. They played them all 6 games during their stretch. We'll see what happens. The playoffs. The Red Sox may win the World Series now. I don't know.
No, they will not win the World Series.
They might get swept in the first round.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
Baseball is, you can tell, it tells you nothing. Keep waking up and going about your business because the White Sox, and now we've been saying this, they've been in first place for 50 flipping days at this point. That's why I'm not settling, Hoodie.
That's right.
I'm not settling. And I don't think Will Venable and company will either. If Chris Getz would have settled, he would have made 0 trades at the deadline, and he would have told you the prices. He would have sounded a lot like Rick and Kenny. He would have. Well, we value our system and blah, blah, blah. Well, no one else does. That's the problem of the old trade deadlines. No one valued your system, and you got burned. But Chris went out and found moves. All right, Saturday, huge day. The next jersey retirement number of the Chicago White Sox. Well overdue. Number 1 in my heart and your heart for sure. Number 13 will be right there next to Paulie Canerico and being retired against the Guardians, which I think is awesome that it's happening against. It should have happened against the Twins, but I think it's awesome that it's happening against an AL Central foe. Your thoughts? Obviously, this is long overdue. That place is going to be rocking. I love Ozzie Guillen, the player, the manager, and the person. Okay. I like them in the reverse order. I like the person. I like the manager. And the manager and the player to me are like that's 2 different people. But my God, he is one of the best humans and has treated me and my family. I could go on and tell you how much I love this man, but I could truly tell you I love him. I'm so happy for him and his family to have this honor.
So similar to Stacey King, who left us way too soon, we have to give Ozzie his flowers because during the dark times of the Bulls, Stacey King was the face of the Chicago Bulls. And the same can be said for Oz again.
No doubt.
Those 100 lost teams and bad baseball and no direction. Ozzy and Chuck were the two that were entertaining us. You're at the bar, the volume's turned up, and at least those guys are saying something that matters to us as Sox fans, or they're goofing or whatever. But during the lean times, we leaned on Ozzie Guillen to be able to entertain us or give us some kind of hope. And also a guy that has a license to be able to say whatever he wants to say about the White Sox, right? I mean, now one of these guys that we see on these networks that pretend like nothing to see here, we're just fine when you're way up the track. So I appreciate Ozzie as a broadcaster. Ozzie and I also, Guff, went into the Hall of Fame together. You don't know if you know this. The Pitch and Hit Club.
Oh, you're a pitch and hit club guy.
Yes, we
have that in common too. I just wish I would in that class.
Yeah, I was in the same class as Ozzie Guillen, if you could believe that. So I'm doing this speech, right?
Better class.
And I'm in also Ryan Dempster in that class.
Yeah, my class was not as good. It's probably how I got in.
So I'm doing a speech, and my speech was, and I won't go through all of it, but my speech was that when, as someone who loves baseball, do not talk down about our sport. That was my speech. My speech to the people that were assembled at the Pitch and Hit Club was, don't talk about back in the day. Back in the day, it was so much better in the 70s and the 80s and 90s. I said, because when you do that, you scare young people away from the sport. Mm-hmm. That was the impetus of my speech. Like, talk about today. Talk about how special baseball is today. That way you grow the sport that way. The one thing about the NFL guys don't talk about, in the 70s and 80s is much better. You know why all those broadcasters fall in line? Because they support the sport today, right? NBA doesn't do that, unfortunately. But that was my whole thing. And Ozzie Guillen's with his granddaughter, I think, over here toward I'm doing the speech. I look down at Ozzie, and I'm like, oh, Ozzie's not listening to me. He's with his grandkids. He's distracted. And I was like, I thanked everybody for the award, and I sat down. Ozzie was next. Ozzie got up there, and his first thing he said is, Jonathan Hood, right? Yes, sir. I love what you said about the sport. And he listened actually to what I said. I didn't think he had any clue of what I was saying. And he kind of regurgitated some of the stuff I said about how great our sport is. And we were able to talk afterwards. I hadn't had that kind of audience with Ozzie before, but long form, talking to his family. So just a great guy. And of course, because we're guys of a certain age and fans of a certain age, we remember Ozzie when he first came up. Plucky, shortstop, fun, just a vacuum cleaner over there, short. And he was part of some special teams that we saw. So Ozzie means a lot to all of us. It's not just getting his number retired. It's because he's the face of the franchise. And hopefully someone on this roster can take the keys and say, no, Ozzie, you've done enough. Put it on me. Murakami, the Montgomery brothers, Antonacci with the elbow, whatever, right? Somebody could take it over from Ozzie, because the kid should say, Ozzie, we'll take it from here.
Yeah, I think he's the perfect this is what I'll say about Ozzie. He kind of defined everything about being a Sox for me. I'm 46 years old. Mm-hmm. The first game I ever went to a bunch of games at Old Comiskey. There are two guys that signed every single time we went as a family. Every time. I'd bring everybody's cards, and I'd walk away with two guys every single time. The Pope Don Paul and Ozzie Guillen. Every time. There wasn't a time he didn't say, no kid, no kid, no kid. That has gone 40 years later. He's still telling kids. He's taking pictures with families. He's picking up kids. He's making guys laugh. He's signing. He's telling off-color jokes because he is just a man of the people. Stacey King was a really good comp in that way, not just for getting you through the dark days, but Stacey, there wasn't a person he said no to. Yeah. Take a picture, come down the court, make people feel just for a second that they matter. And that's what Ozzie Guillen did as a player. As a manager, I had the opportunity. I came to Comcast Sportsnet in 2004. I was shipped off to spring training for 37 days, and that team won the World Series. So I was in the clubhouse with that team all the time, in the clubhouse the night they won the World Series, and got to know Ozzie, the manager. chased him down years later after he was in Miami to do this documentary on the 05 White Sox in 15. I went to his place in Miami. He comes out on his balcony. Yo, Big Red, come on up. And he's just been that guy. He's been a constant in like every stage of my life in a really weird way. I thought about this recently. You know, when you can say like 0 to 10, 11 to 20, 21 to 30, like, and I can find Ozzie Guillen at each stage, it's kind of crazy. And one of my favorite times of my entire career, and you know I've gotten to do some really cool shit. We went to the Field of Dreams with Ozzie Guillen for 3 days, and I picked him up and drove him myself. Me, him, and Chuck. Picked him up at his house. We drove through, imagine driving through those parts of Illinois and Iowa with Ozzie Guillen, okay? Yeah. And we go one night, he calls, hey, come here. He's like, you got to find where we're going after all this. We're going to hang out together. Okay. So I start looking up bars. He goes, no, we're not going out. And we go to this, we were staying at this shithole hotel in Dubuque. Mm-hmm. And he points to the parking lot. There was a gazebo. He goes, see that? That's where we're going. Go. He's like, let's get everything for make sure we get enough drinks for the crew. And we sat out there for 4 hours, laugh until we cried, smoking stogies. And it was like, he wanted to hear about he wanted to hear every person's story, how many kids they had, who their parents were. And it's just like, I think Saturday, it just embodies I'm just one person. And I think there's a million of me that can say that about Ozzie Guillen, whether you worked with him as and we're brothers, or if you were a fan that went to games like I did when I was a kid at Old Comiskey. There's a million people that have 10 Ozzie Guillen autographs because he's always been giving back to the fans. So for the White Sox to give this back, because, and I'll end it this way, 2005 was the ultimate gift for all of us, Hoodie, right? Yeah. You and I, no matter what happens the rest of our lives, we'll have that. Mm-hmm. We'll cherish it. We were at an age to enjoy it. And the sole reason that they won that World Series is because of Ozzie flipping Guillen. Yes, they had unbelievable pitching. Yes, they had great power and hitting and great players that are hanging in the rafters next to him, Burley and Konerko. But they won because of number 13. And I'm so glad that he's getting that honor on Saturday.
It's well-deserved. It's well-deserved.
Well, we will we'll have reaction next week when you and I get back together. Hopefully the White Sox sweep the Guardians and everyone's feelings about everyone's nervous system kind of turns back around. Mm-hmm. I'm not telling you how to. I thought your caller was that was a really good story, because I'm never going to tell you how to fan. I'm never going to tell you how to feel about a win or a loss. But I just want everybody who's listening or watching this to look at the standings today, right now. Right now. Go to the MLB standings and look at the American League Central and look at your watch or the calendar or whatever it is, however you see the date, and take a deep breath and go, holy hell, I can't believe we're here, because that's where they are. It's not been pretty at times. It's been amazing at others. And I think it's probably going to be like that the next 50 games. That's what's
yeah, man. And I'm here for it, because it's better than the alternative.
Oh, God.
It's a great slogan. White Sox baseball, better than the alternative.
I'm so glad that we're not sitting here throwing darts, coming up with topics for top 5 White Sox, where number 13. No. Hoodie, always a pleasure, my friend. We're taking this thing to the moon. I'm glad you're going with me.
No question about that. And you're going to be out there Saturday?
I am trying to make a way. I am trying to come hell or high water. I'll put it that way.
Yes. Just a wave, if nothing else. Yes. Try to find a way, because I'm going to get out there, because that guy means a lot. That guy means a lot to White Sox baseball. We owe it to him. Find a way, Guff. Find a way.
I love that slogan. Jonathan Hood, he's the man. Catch him every morning, 6 to 9 with Cap, the better half. Wait, what? If you have a White Sox question, make sure that Hoodie gets the microphone. Don't get boxed out by Cap trying to answer a White Sox question. It's the White Sox Recap Podcast. If you don't already subscribe to the Recap, come on, get on board. Click that notification bell every time we drop a podcast. You get that notification. The first place White Sox are still in first place. Take a deep breath, no matter what. Take a deep breath. And hang on for dear life, because it's a white-knuckle ride to the finish. For Hoodie, I'm Guff. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to this edition of the White Sox Recap Podcast. We'll see you next time.
I missed the palm ball.